Hi, I'm Andrew Smith, here with another video. This one talking about what in the world just happened with Facebook ads for real estate. Perhaps you noticed that your ads weren't being distributed the way they used to be, or you went to go create a new ad and you saw a whole bunch of new changes and you just shut down and didn't proceed. But we'll talk a little bit about some of those changes and what you can do about them so you can continue with your marketing and advertising. So what happened is Facebook got sued by HUD for housing discrimination, because on Facebook's platform it allows for discrimination, meaning you can exclude protected classes, whether it be age, gender. And so what Facebook has done is they've protected their bottom line by making it a lot more challenging for us, or making it impossible, if you will, for advertisers to discriminate against those protected classes. And I think this is one of those cases where they cured the headache by cutting off the head, because there's a lot here that has gone into effect that will significantly disrupt your advertising campaigns if they're not compliant with the way things will need to be going forward. So what they did was implement changes to their platform that when you are doing an ad for housing, certain restrictions will be included in that campaign. So again, you won't be able to discriminate against protected classes. And when you are going to create a new campaign, one of the first things you'll see is this special ad category as part of the campaign. And what that is just highlighting the fact that some ads are going to be for jobs, credit, and housing, and those fall into now this category of special ads. So when you do go to create your campaign, the first thing to do will be to select that you are creating a campaign for ads in a special ad category. That will expose this drop down, of which you can then choose housing. Next, you'll be taken to the ad set as usual, and the first thing to notice here when you're in the ad set is this message that says, when using a custom audience, be sure that your audience selections do not discriminate against people based on certain personal characteristics. So what does that mean? So if you're accustomed to using custom audiences, perhaps to retarget people who have engaged with your content previously, you have to make sure that the custom audience that you're selecting going forward is not in violation of the fair housing laws from previous build, or from a previous campaign build, or previous audience creation. So what I mean by that is, let's say you create a video ad. This is perhaps part of a brand awareness play, and you're getting people to watch that ad based on audience criteria that you selected in the past. And perhaps because you were instructed, you created an audience that was comprised of women, in this example aged 27 to 55, and you excluded real estate professionals, and you showed that ad to that audience. And at the time it was a cold audience. It was a saved audience that you would have been able to select from at any time and send traffic to it. But again, now that audience contains violations of the fair housing law, because it doesn't include all ages, it doesn't include all genders, and it does exclude, in this case, real estate professionals. So what you would have done in the past is curated from that audience people who engaged with your content and create then a custom audience. Now this is a audience of people who have engaged, maybe watched a certain percentage of your video, but the point is that these people are now warm prospects. These are people who you've developed some sort of relationship with through the videos that they watched. You've built up a rapport, you've built up a relationship, you've built credibility with them, and they've gotten to a point where they know, like, and trust you. So now you go create a retargeting ad, and you want to send that ad to this old custom audience. Well, if you do that, now you'll be in violation, because that custom audience is violating fair housing laws. So what Facebook is saying is you can no longer create new housing ads from your old custom audiences that are now in violation. And I hope that makes sense. So one of the things that you would want to do is start sending traffic to approved audiences so that you can curate approved custom audiences. So going back to our ad set now, the next thing that you'll see is that you can no longer target by zip code. I mean, and this is huge because there are some companies that are built on the ability to target by zip code when it comes to housing. I'm not sure what's going to happen with those businesses or how they'll make their adjustments. I'm sure they will. But that's a huge situation when you can't target by zip code. And again, you know, some people would discriminate, not target certain zip codes because maybe they're low income, things like that. So, I mean, you know, one way to look at this is, yes, this is hampering marketers' ability to market, but I think more importantly, it's creating it's eliminating the ability to discriminate against people who have been discriminated against for a long time. So that's one positive way to look at it. But you'll also notice in the ad set that you can't make adjustments to the age anymore. And of course, as I was saying, you can't make adjustments to the gender. So these are all fixed. And while you can no longer target by zip code, you can also no longer target inside of 15 miles of a specific area. What I mean is, in the past, if you were targeting a specific city, you could set a radius that went up to 5 miles around that city. If you were using the drop pin method, you could target within 1 mile of that pin. But now you're limited, you're restricted to no less than 15 miles around a given city. So you can imagine that is going to lend to a lot of saturation. And at least here in the Washington, D.C. area, where you have 3 jurisdictions, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, if someone is licensed in only one of those jurisdictions and they're around what we call the DMV, chances are they're going to be showing ads to people who are not in the geography that they really want to target. So this changes things significantly, as you can probably start to see. Now, this is where it really gets interesting because a lot of the interests that we have been using to target people have been taken away. I mean, 2 years ago, you could target by income, you know, certain behavior. You could target by anything almost. And within the past year, they've taken a lot of that targeting criteria away. But here with these recent changes with regard to housing, employment, and jobs, specifically housing in this case, there are a lot of options that we were still using here within the past few months that are now no longer available. So let's take a look at what we do have available to us. So you can still do the basics. You know, you can still, if you may be looking for buyers, you can still target by Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, Homes.com. Important to note is that you can't target by job title, which means you can no longer exclude real estate agents from your targeting, which is also very significant because when you're sending out your ads, you typically don't want your competition seeing them. And here now, that ability has been taken away. Like I was saying, you can do the basics, Homes.com, Trulia, Zillow, that sort of thing. But whereas Redfin was an option before, you know, because a lot of people searched on Redfin's site, you can't use that anymore because you can't target by company name, again, when it comes to housing. So really a lot of restrictions that have been imposed with this recent change. So you can see here that I'm just 15 miles around Silver Spring, Maryland, and there's 190,000 people in that audience. Well, you're going to want to narrow that down even more, and there are ways to do that, thankfully, and we'll talk about one of those ways here in this video. Everything else with regards to the ad set and creating the ad and creative and all that's the same. the major changes are within the ad set with regard to audience creation. So something that they have implemented as part of this whole change is a special ad audience. Now, I'll do my best to try to explain this, but a special ad audience is an audience that's made up of a previous custom audience, but it's similar to a lookalike audience in that it will find people in whatever geography you're selecting who are similar or have similar characteristics to the people in your custom audience who like your page. So let me say that differently. Going forward, your custom audience will have to be people that you've engaged with at some point that do not violate the fair housing laws. You can create what's called a special ad audience that consists of your custom audience and anyone who is similar to them. And then Facebook will allow you to send ads to those people also. So hopefully that made some sense. If you're familiar with lookalike audiences, it's a very similar process. All right, so to create that special ad audience, you would, under your Create New Audience, click Create New, then select Special Ad Audience, and then you have to select your source. And this is what I was saying a moment ago, that your source has to be from people who have engaged with your site or your customer list or something previously, but they, again, don't violate the fair housing law criteria that's being enforced on us now. Okay, so your source must be a custom audience or a business page, and again, your custom audience can be a custom, customer list, people who have watched a video or engaged with your page or something to that effect. All right, so you're going to select your source. I'm using my real estate page as the source, and then I'm using America or United States as the audience location. And then where, down here where you have these options, just leave it at 1%, and that's going to be 2.2 million people, 1% of the population that's on Facebook, 1% of the American population that's on Facebook. And Facebook is going to start finding people who are similar to your audience, your custom audience, I should say, all throughout the United States. But obviously you don't want to be marketing real estate to everyone in the United States, so I'll show you how that narrows down to your specific geography. So you'll go ahead and click Create Audience in that case, and then you'll see this special ad audience, US 1% people who like Maryland homes. So Maryland homes being my real estate page, and now there's this audience of 2 million or so people that are similar to those who are on my those who like my real estate page. Ignore this number for right now. And as you note here, there is an exclusion, but what you can exclude there are other custom audiences, not necessarily excluding based on job titles and that sort of thing. Okay, so now I narrowed that down to the 15 miles around Silver Spring, and you can see that my potential reach got to something a bit more manageable. All right, now this is still a cold audience, of course, but it's a cold audience that is going to be compliant with Facebook's new regulations with respect to housing ads. And I did include a little link down here. Well, it's not a little link at all, but I included a link so that you can read more about special ad audiences from Facebook's page. So part of this change is that you can't save an audience anymore, and you can't use a saved audience for housing ads, but you can duplicate an existing ad to show it to the new compliant audience that you would have just created. All right, so what to do now? You've got ads running, they're likely not compliant. If you've learned to do this over the past couple years, everything that you would have learned with regards to audiences has pretty much been thrown out the window. So what do you do? So the first thing that I would do, and that I did for my clients, is to turn off all of their real estate ads and then basically start over. create a new video views campaign of, new, cold, but compliant audience. And I say video views because videos are the best way to get a lot of traffic to your content for not a lot of money. I mean, you can spend less than 10 cents per video view. You can get thousands of views, and that's thousands of eyeballs to your content. Then you can create a custom audience and then also expand that with the special ad audience. Okay, but trying to do it with traffic, one is going to be too expensive, and you just won't get the same amount of results that you will with an engaging, compelling video. Then I would start adding videos to that campaign. In those videos, the purpose there is, again, to build rapport, to get people to know, like, and trust you. I mean, this is really how I encourage, this is how I build campaigns for my clients anyway, especially those who are just starting out. You want to have some sort of brand awareness play. I'm not saying use a brand awareness campaign, so to speak, but you want to have something that's going to develop trust with your audience so that they know, like, and trust you, because they won't do business with you until they do. Adding videos, sending videos to that audience that are going to educate them, entertain them, inform them. Those are going to be that will be the fastest way to getting compliant viewers to your content. And of course, the way to get traffic to that content, unless you have tens of thousands of followers, because keep in mind, Facebook is only going to show your content on your business page to 3 to 4% of the followers that you have. So unless you have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers, you're going to need to advertise. You're going to need to pay to play. And in this case, I would put as much of your advertising dollars as you have available into this activity to get more compliant eyeballs on your content, so that once you do, you can create a custom audience of those who have watched those videos, because that custom audience will now be compliant with these new regulations. And then you will create a campaign to start collecting leads from that warm but now compliant audience. Now, this is what I'm encouraging my clients to do. If you have another solution, please share it with me. This is all very new to all of us, so perhaps we can all help each other navigate through this process. I'm Andrew Smith. I hope you found some value in this video. If so, please like and/or subscribe and share it with your friends. Thanks and take care.